Welcome to the Think Small podcast, hypergrowth for small businesses. So, what's slowing you down?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Think Small podcast. I'm your host, Denise Steinbring. And if you've been following this show for a while, you know that some of our best conversations have come from the Washington, D.C. small business community. Today's guest is as Washington as it gets. He grew up in Northeast D.C.'s Michigan Park neighborhood. He went to McKinley Technology High School. He served in the U.S. Air Force. He built his career at Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and HP. And then, in 2000, at 36 years old, on a Saturday morning, he will tell you about in a moment, he decided to walk away from all of that and start a company in his hometown. That company is VTech Solutions, a HUBZone certified veteran and minority-owned technology and professional services firm that has served federal, state, and local government clients for 25 years. 88 employees, a contract with the D.C. Office of the State Superintendent of Education, an AWS partnership, and last fall, a building in Georgetown that now bears his family's name. Victor P. Holt is the founder, president, and CEO of VTech Solutions. Victor, it's such a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the Think Small podcast.
Thank you, Denise. I'm happy to be here with you.
So before we get to some of the big questions, I want the audience to know something about you that most people don't lead with. You sold vegetable and flower seeds in
I did.
Yeah, to try to earn enough for a bicycle. And you didn't sell enough, but the itch was there from the very beginning. Walk us through the arc from Michigan Park to the Air Force.
So, wow, I was in elementary school. I think I was in elementary school I went to Bunker Hill Elementary, and magazines, comic books, or whatever. It had the big shiny bike, and I was out there hustling flower seeds and vegetable seeds. If I remember, they were like $3 for a quarter. 3 packs for a quarter, just knocking on everybody's door. Those times it was different. You could knock on a neighbor's door or whatever, and you would be okay. And I sold a lot. I didn't get the bike. I ended up getting a different prize. Actually, it was a BB gun. And I was happy with that until my dad took it away from me. He was like, you're shooting at things you shouldn't be shooting at. But I was a kid. But nonetheless, just getting out and I guess that entrepreneur spirit being awakened did a lot. It went from there to cutting grass in the neighborhood and clearing snow and just knowing that there was I guess subliminally, there was an alternative route to being able to make money, and, it just always lived inside of me. But that's a good one. You did some research if you found that one. Pumpkin seeds, flower seeds and vegetable seeds. I had forgotten all about that.
Well, it really resonated with me because I sold books door to door during 2 summers in college, and this was in the 80s, right? But that grittiness and that, knocking on doors for 11 hours a day and somehow having a goose egg at the end of the day builds a lot of character in you, right?
Yeah, it did.
So tell us the story that was sort of your aha moment that got you into wanting to do your own thing. You had shared with me a story about your 4-year-old daughter in bed with you on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, so my daughter Haley, we had a thing where Saturday mornings were our mornings, and I would either get up and cook her breakfast or we will go out to breakfast. And so she gets up one morning, and as she usually does, and I think, every kid does, run into the parents' room and jump on the bed. And, she grabs me by the face and she's like, Dad, what are we going to do? And she was asking, like, what are we going to do as it related to food? But I heard it different. I heard it was like, Dad, what are we going to do with this life? Where are we going to go and how are we going to make it happen? That it just resonated in me that way. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, I got to do something. And so at the time I was working for a major integrator, and it was a pretty good job. It was actually a very good job. And I just said, what am I going to do? And that bug got awoken once again, where I just looked and I said, how can I do what I do on my own? and what is that going to take? And it didn't happen overnight. There's no glamorous love story that it just took off. It really took about a year and a half for it to happen. And it was just perseverance and tenacity that made it do that. And what I did was I stepped down from a management position that I was in, and I asked to start working in one of the engineering sections that was a 24/7 environment. And I told them I wanted to work nights. Looked at me like I was crazy. I said, I just want to work nights. I didn't tell them why. I didn't tell them what was going on. And I remember my boss looking at me and he said, you realize you're going to take not a pay cut, but a pay hit if you do that. And I said, I'm okay with it. I said, just make sure I can get night and that I'll work Sunday through Thursday because it was 24/7. I said, put me Sunday through Thursday on nights, 11 to 7. And they did it. And I mean, you would have thought I had leprosy or something because everybody was just looking at me. They stayed away from me. They was like, what is he up to? But I needed the day to start working my dream, or more so to start building it and figuring it out. And that's when I took my first step as it related to VTech. And I worked nights for about a year and a half, actually. And when I started being able to bring on employees, I was burnt out completely by working the nights. And at that time, I had started working days. And one of the things that I did, I looked up at the calendar. It was April 1st. Oh. And I said, what more than a better day to tender my resignation? I said, I would be a fool or it's going to work out. And it was April Fool's Day 2002 when I walked away from that W-2 check that another company was giving me. And I started the company in 2000, but it was April Fool's Day 2002. I tendered my resignation, and fortunately, I've never had to look back. I never had any regrets about that.
Yeah, what an honest story about taking a wild swing for the fences, right? And sometimes God uses the little people to speak into our lives, and I think that was a God thing.
and now, as we fast forward 30 years later, I don't know if I work for her or she works for me, but she works in the company.
That's amazing.
And now we're doing it together. So that's how dreams come true, I guess.
Yes, what a great story. So tell the audience a little bit about what VTech Solutions does. What's your business?
So we have three. That's health services, technology, and professional service. In the health arena, what we're doing is we're working in the health arena. What we do is we do a lot of work around Medicare and Medicaid. And with the Medicare and Medicaid work that we're doing, we work with specific clientele that's 0 to 21 years old, and helping them to understand, or helping the caregivers to understand the services that they have access to, and ensuring that those children are getting the services and care that they need, and that they're seeing that primary care physician or family practitioner, and just educating them about the wraparound services that they also have access to. This also entails working and having social workers, CNAs, nurses that do case management, and community health workers as well. We also do a lot of work with children and adults with disabilities, and as it relates to care services, whether it's in-resident care or whether it's day center care, where we contract out with organizations that needs those type of services. And we work with child welfare as it pertains to foster care and adoption care. And we have subject matter experts that work and support federal agencies and ensuring that the laws as it relates to foster and adoption care are being adhered to and compliant, because every state has have different needs and different requirements as it relates to compliancy. When we move into technology, we're doing AI, we're doing cybersecurity, and we're doing network management and on-them legacy support. And then our professional services consist of anything from program support, administrative services, as well as food services, which that was one of the newer capabilities that we have, but we've been doing it for about 7 years now. And we work with a hospital where we prepare and serve 1,000 meals a day. Yeah, every day of the year.
That's
Yeah.
great. So back to that April Fool's Day when you tendered your resignation, what did you know about yourself at that moment that made you feel like this is the right bet at the right time? And what did those first years, because this is a very diverse business, right? You've got lots of
Yeah.
different things going on. What did those first years teach you that maybe no large company ever would have?
To bet on yourself, to learn to bet on yourself, and to learn to listen to your inner voice. And so I always tell folks, they said, what was your worst fear that when you went out there, if it didn't work, what was people ask me, what was your biggest fear or worst fear? And I told them, I said that I would end up in my parents' basement for about a year.
Uh-huh.
And, I said, but it wouldn't have been a year. I already had a house. And I said, I just looked at worst case scenario. I sell a house, but the house had equity in it. And I said, worst case scenario, I sell my house because I was committed. And I just said, I have to see it through. So that's what I did. And the challenges, it was many. And some of them were severe. And I tell everyone, I said, you earn your stripes and you get whether you got a degree in business or not, you get your real degree in business in those first few years, because you actually pay for the mistakes that you make along the way. And, I said, I tell people all the time, don't let that paralyze you. Look at it as tuition and keep it moving.
That's a great perspective. You also had shared with me previously that from your military experience, right, you recognize that you were built to lead, not to follow. What were those experiences that made you go, gosh?
I'm a Air Force veteran, and I'm very, very proud of being an Air Force veteran. I learned a
For your
lot.
service.
I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about others. At the time that I was in the military, it was still a yes sir, no sir, and I know it's still like that in certain aspects and circumstances. But at the time that I was in the military, you was told to do something you didn't question, and not only did you not question it, you did it however the SOP said do it, and you could sometimes see a more efficient, effective, time saving, money saving, resourceful way to do something. But no one may particularly want to hear it. And so I just, started seeing things that I didn't like. One of the biggest things I didn't like was that even though someone was in charge, didn't mean that they knew it. Because and I'm not knocking the military on this, but for the individuals that I dealt with while I was in the military, rank was rank. And if you was there long enough, eventually something's going to happen where you're going to get some rank.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that you were the best person for the job. And I was always taught, and I grew up, how do you be your best self, your best person, and affect things positively? Everyone has their own different experiences. And for the experience that I had, I didn't feel as though all of those things and or attributes were there in the situation that I was in, dealing with the folks that I was dealing. And so it was sort of put out, he doesn't play well with others. And, actually that became my fuel. And I was like, no, I don't, because, I want to be fair and transparent. And in certain aspects, I didn't see that with that team or that squadron that I was in.
You had shared with me something you learned early on when you're sitting in a room and people are kind of cross-examining you, and maybe you don't have the answer right then, to the questions that are being asked. But that's okay, right? And that's
Yeah.
you don't have to answer a question with an answer. And that's a skill that a lot of business owners spend years trying to learn. So, what does that actually look like when you're in the room with someone who's trying to be a sniper?
You first you have to know how to recognize, and two, you need to make sure that you stay on track with your messaging. Three, there's ways to ensure that the other folks that are in that room or in that meeting understand what's happening or what's going on, and you don't argue with it and you don't confront it from the standpoint of matching the energy that's coming at you, but you engage. And for me, I'll engage you in a different way, and then I will bring the room in. And when you do that, that person that's trying to be the sniper, they'll feel the walls closing in on them, and they'll sit back or whatever. And then sometimes I if that's something that you see that's being done intentionally, and then sometimes it's about the technology that someone's really excited about it and want to know this or know that. And I just tell them, I'm like, I'm not that person, but I'll bring in my subject matter experts and be glad to answer those questions. And with the agenda that was sent out, I didn't anticipate that the conversation was going to go this way. So I apologize, but I'll be more than happy to bring in my subject matter experts, set up a call, do another meeting, or just send it back to you in a white paper.
Okay. Well, I want to dig a little bit into the HUBZone model. So talk a little bit about that. What is it, and what is your role in that organization?
So hub zones are historically underutilized business zone, and that it was started really because of manufacturing when a lot of manufacturers started going overseas. And what the purpose of that was, they was able to do it cheaper, but at the same time, it affected the economy, which affected the communities and where those manufacturers live. So the federal government came up with the HUBZone certification to try to re-empower those communities. What we saw was that set-asides were done for hub zones by the federal government, by DOD. It was incentivized where prime contractors subcontract to hub zone companies. They got certain credits, or they get certain credits behind it as well. So as we fast forward, I'm on the board of the National Hub Zone Contractor Council, and I serve as the treasurer. And what we advocate for is more inclusion as it relates to HUBZone, because we're the only socio set aside since we've been started, since inception, that has never met the federal goal, not for the way that it's written. And you'll see federal agencies, and I advocate and I just tell them to stop all the time. They say, oh, we hit our HUBZone goal. The way that they hit is by bundle. So if you're an 8A, or if you're a service disabled veteran and you're a HUBZone, they're counting. Even though it came out as an 8A, they'll take the HUBZone credit as well. And one of the rhetorical questions is, if you was to look at an agency forecast and look at the HUBZone set-asides that are on it, would it add up to what the goal is to spend with HUBZone? And that's when the room goes quiet. So there are agencies that will tout that they hit their goal, and per their math, they're correct. However, if you did it in the spirit of which that hub zones were socioeconomic set aside was established for, doesn't hit. 8A has been hit. Service disabled veteran has been hit. Women owned has been hit. But federal and DOD, for the language, the way that it's written, they have never hit the goal without bundling.
So you built VTech deliberately as a HUBZone veteran-owned, minority-owned company, right?
Yes, VTech is all three. And for me, the win is the community, because by being a hub zone, I have to hire 33% of my employees have to live in a hub zone. So by that happening, I'm empowering that neighborhood or that community. I'm bringing jobs to them that they may not have traditional pathways to get to. And I think that's a win. I've done 8A and I did very well being 8A. I'm a veteran. And one of the things that I've talked about as I've been up on the Hill and I've testified as well is that those programs benefit the owner. It doesn't benefit the community. It doesn't benefit, quite frankly, the United States, because those funds and that money goes directly into the owner's pocket as it relates to profits. But when I know that I have to spend X amount of dollars or a percentage of that with a HUBZone community, I'm helping to grow families. I'm helping in individuals being upskilled or reskilled. Helping to grow constituency as well. And I'm helping to invest in what's supposed to be the American dream, where folks are exploring what's inside of them in order to thrive and build their families and maintain their households.
Okay. For a founder or business owner who's listening right now who might not be in DC, not near the federal procurement, is the HUBZone model still relevant to them, or is this a model that
Yeah.
works in certain geographies?
Yeah, it most definitely is, because it doesn't matter where you are in the country.
Okay.
Hub zones are everywhere, and if you go to the SBA map for hub zones, you can put in your address, and you can see whether or not you qualify or not, and then you can start working. I would ask anyone that's interested is to look at us, be it the National Hub Zone Council, and become a member and join us and let your voice be heard. And we do an advocacy day once a year during our big conference, and we're up on the Hill, and we're talking to senators, we're talking to congressmen, and we're talking to stakeholders to make sure that the program stays relevant and grows and flourish.
So you had shared with me that you yourself have only received one HUBZone Prime Contract Award in 25 years, but millions in subcontracting. So
Correct.
for a founder who's thinking about this, is it worth it? Does that change what you would
Yes.
advise them about pursuing it?
Yes. Yes. The prime contract that I received as a hub zone was for $10,000. That was it.
Mhm.
And it was for to decommission a it was to decommission a telecom closet. That's all they wanted us to do. So we did it. However, we have received millions of dollars over the course of the year as a subcontractor because we're a hub zone. We got brought on to those federal contracts because of that.
Okay.
So it's absolutely worth it. And it's not like you just want to walk up and say, I'm a hub zone, give me a contract. It doesn't work that way. Make sure that you can effectively demonstrate the features of your company, the value you will bring to that particular contract, and the benefits that will be given as it relates to the end customer as well as that prime contract. So you have to have your story together, and it has to be verifiable via your past performance and experience.
Okay, so here's one for you. You're 25 years in now to your dream, right? And a lot of founders at this year are thinking about exit. You instead bought a building, put your name on it, launched a med spa, and started a family foundation. So that's not an exit strategy. That's a deepening. Where does that building, or what does that building outlive you actually look like? And how has your definition of success changed from 2000 to today?
In 2000, it was just, I have a company. That was 2000. That was Victor 2000. Victor 2026 is, I have businesses that I'm turning into enterprises. That's creating an enterprise. And the Holt building is the flagship where all of those businesses reside. And so the objective is to build legacy, and for them to outlive me, for all of it to outlive me for generations to generations and generations to come, where I'll get lost in the history. Won't nobody even know my name or remember my name, but it'll just be Holt that, will hopefully resonate and carry on. So it's a lot of times we don't see what's in front of us because we hear a company's name, but a lot of people don't realize the company is named after someone. Just like cars, a lot of the cars are named Ford, Chevrolet. There was a Chevrolet. Folks don't realize that, and it's nothing that the founder may have ever envisioned, but it's the founder's job to dig the hole, lay the foundation, put in as many steel girders as you can, make sure that they're galvanized, and you start building knowing that someone else is going to carry that on and take it places you've never even seen or could imagine. So
yeah, I love that. I think you described driving around in the neighborhood you grew up in and wondering why can't it be the way that it was, right? But you're helping to make it be the thing for the next generation.
Exactly. I always, I've heard it said, and I say it all the time. It's the reason that the rear view mirror is smaller than the windshield. The windshield is letting you see where you're going. The rear view, it gives you a glimpse of the past. It allows you to see where you came from. But you got to keep moving.
Well, having grown up in DC and building your company there, and now you got the building with your name on it, for a founder who's building something in their own community right now and wondering, is that community big enough or connected enough or funded enough to support what they're trying to do? What would you tell them?
Do the homework to see if it is. If it isn't, do the homework to see what can be done, and do the homework to see how you can help. Because you can sit back and say, well, they don't have this budget or they can't do that. Or you can seek to understand and work to get them there, show them there, and then you can benefit from that.
Yeah, tell us the story about the donut lady.
She lived in a small town, and if I remember correctly, the town was about 3,000, 4,000 people. And her understanding of her demographics, she gave away a lot of free donuts. She donated a lot of free donuts. She messed up a lot of free donuts because they went bad. People couldn't afford to buy them. But through her perseverance, folks saw what she was doing. And what she did, she created community and she started teaching people how to make donuts. So she created a workforce. So it was like, early workforce development that she did. And she was able to get those donuts out of her town into other towns, into other communities. The community that she was in, as it began to grow, because she was expanding the commerce and jobs were coming in, then folks could buy her donuts. And so it usually just takes a great idea and full commitment to change something. And sometimes you have to be the change that you want. And other times you have to drive that change. And that's what she was able to do. And she went on to be, multi-million dollar corporation. It may be $1 billion corporation by now. So,
and so I think the lesson there is like all communities are big enough, right? If she was
all communities are big, absolutely. All communities are big enough.
awesome. Well, before we close, you mentioned something that I've been thinking about ever since you said it. You called it BAIL, BAIL. Walk us through that, because I think this is one of the most practical things any small business owner listening today can do before Monday morning.
Yeah. So as a small business owner, you always want to have BAIL, and BAIL is an acronym. So you want BAIL, BAIL. You want to have your banker. You want to have your attorney. You want to have, I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrong. You want to have your banker. The A is accountant. You want to have your banker, your accountant, your insurance agent, and L is your lawyer. You never know you never ever know when you're going to need them. And the one thing you don't want to do is call them when you need them. Don't let the phone call go at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and you haven't talked to them in months or in years. These are supposed to be people that when you win a contract, they know that you won. They should be on your list as far as sending out Christmas greetings, birthday greetings, being able to send something out as it relates to their children, graduations, congratulations, or whatever, so that they will take their call.
Yeah.
And they need to know what you're doing and where you are, whether you treat it like a stoplight, red, yellow, or green, so that if they do have to come in, they know what type of mindset that they're coming in with and what possible resources they may need to be bringing to assist you. And it doesn't mean that it's negative. I can tell you, I was in San Francisco at a conference, and while I was there, we won 2 contracts within 3 days. And I was paralyzed from it because I was like, oh my God, I got to hire these people and I have to do this, I have to do that. And when I looked around, my banker was at the conference.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my banker was at the conference. So I was like, okay, that's the first person I'm going to need to talk to anyway. And I told him what was going on. I had my laptop. I was showing him the emails and everything, and he was happy. So that was a good moment, and we sat there and strategized one evening and just mapped everything out that needed to be done for me to start onboarding folks, but more importantly, to ensure that I had the financial resources to be able to, take on the contract. And it worked out smoothly, very smoothly. So make sure that you have good folks. That's your team. And I call them when I put my bell together, I call them my Clydesdales because they're the ones that help pull my companies. They help me to get to where I'm going. Those are my Clydesdales.
Yeah. Wonderful.
You got to take care of them.
Yeah. Well, Victor's, where can our listeners find you, connect with VTech, or learn more about what you're building in DC? You've given us so many great nuggets.
So our website for VTech is www.v-techsolutions.net. And our franchise for the Drip Bar is thedripbardc.com. So that's our wellness center where we're doing IV infusions, peptides, and working with folks that are on their wellness journey. And we partner with them, and we can partner with their physician to provide the support that they need as well. So that's
congratulations on being a small business owner winner at the DC Chamber. That was exciting. And to our Think Small listeners, if today's conversation reminded you that the community you grew up in is worth building for, not just building from, please share this episode with someone who needs to hear it, and make sure you have your bail ready. We'll see you all next time.
All right.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Welcome to the Think Small podcast, hypergrowth for small businesses. So, what's slowing you down?